Hello and welcome back to Podium Pop. My name is Celine and this is Grace. We are a Formula One podcast and today we have an exciting episode for you all. We will be doing the race recap for the Chinease Grand Prix, the first one in 5 years since 2019. It was an eventful weekend. It was the very first sprint weekend of the year. So let's go ahead and pop the bottle and get right into it.
It was a pretty exciting weekend.
It was a pretty exciting weekend. It was a busy weekend.
It was such a busy weekend. We had our first sprint race.
Mm-hmm.
We had to wake up at 3 a.m.
It was rough. It was
3 days
rough.
in a row.
So we will do a quick overview of what the sprint weekend format looks like. We've talked about it in past episodes before. Yeah. But basically, instead of having 3 practices, a qualifying and a race, we have 1 practice, a sprint qualifying, a sprint race, a qualifying, a feature race, which came with its whole set of problems for this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
We were a little nervous about it just because, again, they haven't raced at this circuit in 5 years. Many people on the track have never raced in the circuit.
Yeah.
You know, Oscar, Logan, Yuki, Zhou, like none of them have experience. Is that everyone that hasn't been there since 2019? Yeah, so there wasn't a whole lot of experience going into it, and even the ones that did race in it in the past hasn't raced in it, raced on it for so long.
Yeah, in 5 years.
So to have only 1 practice session was, I think, a bit of a challenge for the drivers.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is because it is kind of freshly back into the cycle of things, I guess they decided to redo the track and paint it.
So I feel like it was still up in the air. People are saying it was repaved, and they're like, no, it's not repaved, it was repainted, which I don't quite understand the whole repainting thing.
I don't quite get it either. Regardless of what they did to the track, it made it very slick.
It did. Grip was
hard. And on top of that, there was some rain that we had throughout the weekend.
So it rained during the Q3 of the sprint quali. That was a lot of words.
Yeah, a lot of words. And it was probably the sprint qualifying for this weekend was probably one of the most exciting qualifyings that we've had in a long time.
It was very exciting. It was crazy.
So we will touch on that as well. But anything that we had leading up to the race, anything that we needed to discuss there?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. It's Zhou's home race.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a lot of really special moments throughout the weekend. He didn't do great in the actual feature race, but
he did good in the sprint race.
Yeah, he did pretty good. Anything else? I mean, there's still more rumors about Carlos.
Oh yeah.
Once again,
Helmut Marko is airing all of Carlos's, not dirty laundry, all of his deals.
Yeah, because he did say that basically the deal that Audi offered him was, 1, a very lucrative deal.
That they said they couldn't match, which I don't get that.
I don't get it either.
How can a team that doesn't exist on the grid offer Carlos a better deal than Red Bull could offer them? Like, I feel like Red Bull has to have the most funding right now.
But maybe the reason why Audi can offer Carlos a deal is because they aren't having to compete with Max Verstappen's pay. Like, Red Bull probably can't offer them maybe the same deal because all of their money is going to Max.
I didn't even think about that. That's a good point.
So that's something. But, and he also said that the deal with Audi is a two-year contract, right? 3-year contract.
Which, once again, we're getting this information from Helmut Marko.
Yeah. Like, why is Helmut talking about the Audi deal? Regardless, I am still team Carlos going to Red Bull.
Me too.
Because I want Carlos to do amazing next year, and I think the Red Bull will allow him to do that. A lot of people are saying, though, that Red Bull will not bring someone in that will fight Max as hard as Carlos probably will.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it would probably be good for Max. I think it'll push him even more. I don't think that he'll... I mean, yeah, it's probably going to cause tension, but, like...
Max will have more fun.
Yeah, at least it'll be interesting for him. And I think, although on the other side of that, again, Checo has been doing good. So they might just want to keep the same thing going. Like, why, if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of situation. So it'll be interesting. But as of right now, we still have no confirmation. The only first piece that we have is still Fernando re-signing with Aston Martin. He also did make a comment during the press conference that for this weekend that he thinks this will be which we kind of knew, but he's like, this is the last deal, like the last contract that I'm signing in Formula One. Yeah. We still don't know how many years he signed for Aston Martin, and we don't know what that means after he's done driving for Aston Martin, if he's going to continue and help the team out. But he did say this is the last contract he would sign. So we can't expect him to really go to another team in like a year or two. But then again, he can change his mind.
He's retired and unretired before.
Yeah, it's pretty on par for Fernando.
I wouldn't be shocked by anything this man does anymore.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll talk a little bit about FP1. We did watch FP1. Mm-hmm. It was good. I mean, Lance did amazing in FP1. Mm-hmm. And Oscar did amazing in FP1. Yeah. So kind of interesting. Again, I think, especially with Oscar being one of the drivers that have never driven on the track before, and Lance doesn't have a huge amount of experience, as much as some of the other drivers. So for them to be 1 and 2 is weird. But practices, you can't really...
like it depends on what you're testing and what they're doing and figuring out.
Yeah, so, but it was pretty good. The Haas's did really good too. Nico was 5th, Kevin Magnussen was 6th. In practice. Again, it's definitely them testing things out, but it's kind of up in the air. We'll go on to sprint qualifying, which is, again, the interesting part. So Q1 and Q2 are pretty standard, except for Lewis getting out in Q1, which...
No, that was for the regular.
Oh, that's for the regulars. Oh my God, see, sprint races just mess me up. That's for regular qualifying.
Yeah, we're talking about sprint qualifying.
Yeah, so sprint qualifying. Oh, he did good. He did good in sprint qualifying.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So, but Q1 and Q2 were pretty standard. And then right before Q3 was about to start, some rain started coming in. Mm-hmm. And with the conditions of the track already, everyone was slipping and sliding everywhere. And like, I'm talking like they were sliding, like going slow. It's not like they were sliding going full speed. Slow. Even doing their like out laps when they weren't even like racing for the time, they still were sliding off the track and losing grip.
The drivers that got out in Q1 were driving faster by 30 seconds than the drivers that were in Q3 because it was just so slippery. There was no grip. And like, these are your Lando Norris, your Max Verstappen.
Yeah. And honestly, so Lando did end up qualifying for first for pole in the sprint qualifying. Mm-hmm. And then it was Lewis, Fernando, Max, Carlos were the top 5 there. There was a lot of controversy. Oh, yeah. So basically,
different tracks have different rules.
Yeah. So
tracks like Bahrain and Jeddah have a rule where if you are stop. How do you explain it? Yeah, take over.
So basically, if you leave track limits and it gives you the advantage, then what you're supposed to, in qualifying, is what your current lap and your next lap is supposed to be deleted. Mm-hmm. In other tracks, there's not that rule of the advantage part. Yeah. Another thing to note is that basically we're talking about this because Lando got pole, but he, right before he started one of his laps,
I think it was
his last lap, the second to last lap he was on, he slid out and he slid out of track limits.
Into a gravel pit.
It did not give him the advantage at all. No. And people are saying that his current lap, which he was on, which he had like 10 seconds left of, and his next lap should have been deleted per the Bahrain rules, not the Chinese Grand Prix rules. Mm-hmm. So really the stewards made the right call based on the rules and based on...
It shouldn't have been deleted in the first place.
Yes. So what happened is it got deleted and then they reinstated it.
Yeah.
People are mad about it. But
shocker, Lando's always catching strays.
He always is.
Literally.
But all in all, they should have kept the lap, and it was fine. He got reinstated, and he got P1. And I think it's fine, but people were definitely pretty spicy about it online.
Yeah. And yes, it was raining and there was no grip and it was bad, but Lando now has the biggest gap in qualifying in this new era of these cars. Mm-hmm. And it was like 1.2 seconds of a gap to Hamilton.
He did fantastic. He drove good. So good in the rain. And he kept the car on track. Even Max was sliding off, and it was a struggle. And I think Lando showed that he was able to kind of keep calm under pressure, as far as the qualifying. But again, it was a very chaotic Q3 for sure. Yeah. So we will move on to the actual sprint race. So obviously we are McLaren fans. So we were really crossing our fingers for Lando. Mm-hmm. Love him, but sure enough, he shits the bed first lap.
Don't say it like that.
He did. I don't think it's okay. It was unfortunate circumstances. There wasn't a lot he could do. It wasn't necessarily all his fault. It was the car. Yeah. It was a combination. It was Lewis had a fantastic start. But he lost his first position pretty much immediately. Yeah. And was basically the rest of the race just struggling to catch up. Mm-hmm. So the race results for the sprint is Max won.
Came up from fourth.
And then it was Lewis, Checo, Charles, Carlos, Lando, Oscar, and George. And for the sprint race, only the top 8 get points. So those are the 8 people that got the points from it.
Joe got 9th, so he was so close to getting points. So,
it was really, but with Joe, every time like he did like a pass, or even every time he just drove by, the crowd was crazy.
It was so cute to see. I loved it.
It was awesome. Yeah. But yeah, the sprint race was good. We had a lot of fighting between the Ferraris.
Like the 5, 6, 7, 8, like 4, 5, 6, 7 were all like battling, and Checo was back there, and it was like they were all battling. It was literally through goes Checo moment. It was insane.
That one deserved that's when you have like Checo's highlight reels of like great moments. That was a great moment. Yeah. He literally just zoomed right past both of the Ferraris, and was it the 2 Ferraris that were doing it?
I think
they were fighting.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like Lando was in there, but not fighting as much.
Close.
Yeah.
He
was still there.
Charles and Carlos definitely were going wheel to wheel. They were wheel to wheel. Mm-hmm. There were some really close calls. There were some really close bumps. Charles was not happy on the radio about it. He made that very clear. He said something along the lines of, he is battling me harder than he's battling other cars on the track, which I think is not true.
I feel like he was battling just as hard.
I think he was battling just hard. And yes, he was battling hard for Charles. Yeah, but never once did the team come over the radio and say team orders don't battle. Mm-hmm. And second of all, why would he not battle? He doesn't have a spot for Ferrari next year.
He doesn't have a seat.
He doesn't have a seat right now. And yes, I know he will have a seat. He has offers out, all of this stuff. But he's not just going to like give up because you all kicked him off your team for the next year.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting from Charles. It's not like he wasn't fighting with anyone else and just fighting with Charles for that 4th position. He was like fighting out, like Checo was in there too. Mm-hmm. And yeah, he was trying to get ahead of Charles, but Charles also passed Carlos at one point to get 4th.
Yeah. And I mean, Charles did, after the fact, go on in like an interview and was like, sometimes like we kind of push the limit back and forth, and some weeks I push the limit and some weeks Carlos pushes the limit. I just think Carlos pushed the limit this week. So he did call out that like he's definitely done the exact same thing in the past, which I think was good of him. But it's still like you can't expect him not to battle, especially when there's no team orders in place. Mm-hmm. I think that would be silly of him to not. But it was all in all, it was a good sprint race. It was a good first sprint race of the year. The next race, which we'll get into at the end of the episode.
We can't now, we're all crying. I'll cry mid-episode.
Is also a sprint race.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting that they put them next to each other.
They do that with Austin and Brazil, too.
So, but yeah, it was all in all a good sprint race.
There was more action than I thought there would be, considering the race qualifying was right afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
I just assumed it was going to be pretty boring and people weren't going to be pushing that hard,
but nobody retired the car, right?
Mm-mm.
And nobody really had any major bumps or anything, right?
No.
Yeah, so I think it was pretty good.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to regular qualifying. This is the one that Lewis was out in Q1.
Yeah.
So he qualified in 18th.
Lewis also in an interview before we get into it, he goes, I just kept thinking it can't get worse than this. And then it did.
I love Lewis because he's like so real.
No,
like
he is so real.
He's like, yeah, it was pretty bad. Like, he's not going to like try to defend himself too much, which actually, you know, in the past, I feel like he used to like really get defensive. And almost like try to like blame it on other things. And I think he still does that a bit, but I think that he does it less. I don't know if that's, and even from last year to this year, I don't know if it's maturity or if it's the fact that like he knows he's not driving for Mercedes next year, so he doesn't have to like be like, I don't know, like defending him almost like don't blame me.
Which also, I'm gonna interject really quick. Toto was annoying about that. He was like disappointed in him. I forget what he said, but he was like being annoying about Lewis's getting out in the qualifying. But Lewis just got second place in the sprint race. Like, yeah, his qualifying should have been better for sure, but like, it's not like he was 20th in the race and then got out in Q1. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I get Toto's frustrations mainly just because he's so far away. Like, George qualified in 8th. And who knows what George would have really qualified in, because I feel like Q3, you know, as much as I think I'm getting them confused again. The sprint qualifying, the regular qualifying. Oh my gosh, I can't keep them straight. I don't know if I like sprint weekends. But George qualified all the way in 8th, and Lewis was out in 18th. Like, that's a huge gap to your teammate. So it is like, I don't think Lewis blamed the car.
No.
Which again is surprising because that is something he did in the past often. But I still think that it was definitely like a hem problem.
Yeah.
So I get why Toto was a little frustrated.
Mm-hmm. Max got pole.
Yeah. You know, nothing too surprising. Mm-hmm. It was the 2 Red Bulls, and then Aston Martin, and then the 2 McLarens and the 2 Ferraris. And that's just like another thing to point out is that some teams, like, you can tell when you have a good driver lineup, because if they're both both hover near each other, it means that they are both pushing the car to the limit, and like really you can't expect too much more out of them because it comes down to the car.
Yeah.
But like teams like Aston Martin, where, you know, Fernando qualified in 3rd, where Lance qualified in 11th, and then Mercedes with 8th and 18th. And I mean, even Haas was split a lot, where Hülkenberg came in at 9th and K-Mag came in at 17th. Like, those are the ones where you're like, it's going to be more obvious on who should go if they, you know, were to bring on another driver.
Yeah, for sure.
So
also, qualified ahead of the Ferraris.
Yeah, I was happy. I was very happy. Mm-hmm. Right now, as a McLaren girly, the 2 teams I pay attention to the most are Mercedes, because they're right behind us. I do pay attention to Aston Martin because they're not too far off of Mercedes. And I pay attention to Ferrari because Ferrari is the team that we're trying to catch. So to qualify in front of them was super exciting.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Yep. So we'll move on to the actual race then. So the race was, I'm not going to lie to you.
You guys, we had a whole journey on Saturday. We, at 4 p.m., went downtown in our city to go to a baseball game. Had a few little drinks. We're hanging out, and the stadium's like right by like the downtown bar scene. So we went out afterwards. They won.
We gotta celebrate.
Congrats. So maybe we stayed out to the bars until 2 a.m.
Till they closed. They were kicking us out.
The lights turned on and we said, oh, we got a race to watch.
We got a race. We were like, we got to get home. The race is starting soon.
So we go home. We get ready. We make some snacks. We were like, I was doing so good. I was like, I can stay up. I can do this. Like 5 a.m. till 5 a.m. I'll be fine.
We cracked another nooner. We were so confident that we cracked another high noon open.
I was like, I'm going to open a drink. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
No, I fell asleep on lap 30.
Yeah, and I'm normally, like, pretty good about, like, I don't just, like, fall asleep. Like, I don't ever fall asleep watching TV. Like, I don't fall asleep while watching things.
Mm-hmm.
I was knocked out. I mean, at one point, and this is actually because we record our reactions to the race.
Yeah.
This was all also caught on video, which is so funny.
Go watch our TikTok.
Yeah, we did post on TikTok the clip of Gracie waking up, realizing that we were both asleep and nudging me awake.
And also, we slept for like one lap.
Yeah, it was a quick nap.
We were like, whoa.
And now I will say we did fall back asleep again
yeah.
at another point, and it was touch and go. And eventually, Gracie's like, "I just gotta go home."
I know. I woke back up and I was like, "I'm walking home."
Yeah. So, yeah, it was. We didn't stay awake for the full race. We were up for most of it though.
Yeah. So
it was it was difficult to focus too because we were so tired. But there were definitely some big moments in the race. So obviously Max won.
Mm-hmm.
Lando did come in second, which is great to have a McLaren podium.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was Checo.
It's a great strategy for Lando.
Mm-hmm. And it was Checo, so it was Red Bull, McLaren, Red Bull.
Mm-hmm.
And then the two Ferraris behind Charles was the leading Ferrari this week. And
God, Oscar got stuck behind Fernando again.
Yeah. Likely place for him to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so after the two Ferraris, it was George, Fernando, Oscar, Lewis in ninth, and Nico Hülkenberg. Whoa, I can't talk.
Nico Hülkenberg
got points today. So yeah, Nico did get points for Haas, which is exciting.
Oh, Logan finished. I honestly didn't look at anything when I woke up this morning.
Logan did finish out the race. Yes, he was in 17th. Yes, 3 cars DNF, so technically he still was last.
Oh my god, he was a minute and a half behind. Where did Alex finish? Ooh, 12. Okay.
Yeah. It's okay. It's okay.
Well, they also
next race, home race, Logan.
They did something with his car, and he started from pit lane.
Yes.
I don't remember what exactly they did, I'll be honest with you.
I'm not sure either. I think it was something with his gearbox.
Oh, yes, and you can only do that a couple times a season.
Mm-hmm. So we did have 3 cars DNF.
We gotta talk about Lance and Daniel.
Yeah. So, I don't remember Yuki DNFing. We must have missed that.
No, I remember it.
What happened?
Slightly. I don't know.
Was it just something with the car? Or did he bump someone?
No, I think it was something with K-Mag. It was something with Haas.
So this isn't the most accurate or informative race recap we've ever done, but...
Okay. Should we have maybe looked a little more? Yeah, but you guys...
We were tired.
Give us a break.
Yeah. So yeah, Valtteri, he DNF'd, Yuki DNF'd, and then there was a situation. So it was after, I think it was after Valtteri, his car just had some mechanical issues, and it took forever for them to get it off the track for some reason. A safety car came out, and during the restart from the safety car, there was an issue where Lance just full on bumped into the back of Daniel Ricciardo,
like lifted the back of his car.
It was a pretty nasty one.
It was.
And then Daniel did nudge into the back of Oscar, which did have some.
Oscar goes, "We have damage."
Yeah,
that was funny.
Yeah. So and that actually did. In their review of the race, did say that caused him to be a bit slower than they liked and had some issues and had some trickle effect. Lance was very
adamant.
Yeah, that he wasn't at fault for it. There's really no way you can see that clip and be like, oh, that was not Lance's fault. Like, he basically was like, well, people started breaking out of nowhere. And Oscar had a really good moment in in an interview afterwards, he's like, yeah, people started braking, but nobody else crashed.
I know,
like, everyone, you see people braking, you brake. Like, what do you mean? Like, of course people are going to start braking. They were also on a corner. So, yes, people are going to be braking. Everyone's grouped together. Like, you can't blame the car in front of you for braking so they don't crash into the next car. You can't blame them
No,
for
you
that.
can't blame them at all.
So, yeah, Lance kind of fucked Daniel's race, which is sad for Daniel, especially because, again, he didn't do great he DNF'd last week, he DNF'd this week. Again, this one wasn't his fault, but we know that Red Bull doesn't always care if it's their fault or not. And for him to have that rumor of the ultimatum being like, you need to start improving in the next 2 weeks or we're going to basically replace you with Liam Lawson. Well, those 2 races are not looking great for him.
Yeah, I think we'll have to extend it since this wasn't his fault at all.
You would think so, but again, like, it's Red Bull, like, they don't really care about things. Another thing to note is even before he DNF'd, he did get a penalty where he literally, and this one was his fault, where he was penalized so much that he had because he DNF'd, he has a 3 grid place,
he has to serve a penalty in Miami.
Yeah, and he basically, no matter where he finishes in the sprint race, he has to be knocked down 3 grid places.
Yeah.
Which is lucky for him that there is a sprint race, because if there wasn't a sprint race, that would have to be in the future race.
Yeah. And
the future race is obviously worth a lot more points than the sprint race. But, yeah, so he did kind of have that issue. And I'm sure that that's something that Red Bull is kind of taking note of. But I do think that they won't. I don't think that he's going to be replaced by Liam Lawson in the next race, or maybe even the one after. I think that they will give him a couple more races to prove himself.
We'll
but
see till summer.
Yeah, he's gonna have to, maybe like Monaco.
Yeah, I mean they're not gonna, but they're gonna need to stay consistent with what they did with Nick, or it's really gonna show. But obviously Daniel's a favorite, so they're gonna give him as many opportunities as possible, even though.
Yeah.
They're known for being ruthless.
I mean, another thing to point out, though, is that, like, I think, like, looking at it from, like, a very, like, business corporate side of view, if the longer they wait to, like, cross their fingers that Daniel is going to show and prove to them that he can do good, the longer they push it out, the less and less points that they're possibly missing out on. And eventually they're going to get to the point where if they wait too long, they're not going to be able to catch up and get those points and get to the spot that they want to be. So I do think that if they're already thinking about making the call, they need to do in the next couple of races. Otherwise, it's going to be pointless. Like, at that point, you just let them finish out the season.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
So
we also, real quick, need to say a prayer for Chloe Stroll and her husband Scotty, because Scotty is Daniel's best friend, and Chloe is obviously Lance's sister.
Yeah.
That's gonna be...
Whoa, I didn't even think about that.
Oh, no, yeah, that's going to be so awkward.
Yeah, like, they're going to be at, like, dinner, and Scotty's going to be like, so, Lance, what the fuck? That's my best friend. You knocked off. Yeah, and it's also sad because, it gave some damage to Lance, and it gave some damage to Oscar, but Daniel, out of that situation, was the only one. He was kind of smushed in the pancake. He was the only one that had to actually retire from the race. He actually kept going for a little bit longer than, it wasn't like an immediate retire, but eventually they did pull him. So
yeah,
I think there's a clip in the reaction of Daniel, the crash, and then we very quickly fall asleep. And I guess we assumed that he would retire immediately because we woke back up. We're like, why is Daniel back in the race?
I was like, I thought he retired.
Yeah, and then he did retire. So, it was a really good race, though, from what I saw of it.
For what I was awake for?
For what I was awake for. But, I mean, looking at the standings, how they are now, specifically the driver standing, Max is still in first, and then behind him is Checo. Behind him is Charles, Carlos, Lando. They're the top 5. We're looking like nothing too crazy has happened. Like, no one switched from those points, but the gaps are definitely getting a little bit closer. I mean, Charles isn't he's only 11 points off of Checo for second. I mean, Max he's kind of blowing it out of the water already. He's like, what? I can't do that math.
30.
25. 25 point. Really? Did I do that right?
85, 95, 105. Yeah.
Okay.
Good
Math genius. Max is already 25 whole points ahead of Checo, but there's 11 points between Checo and Charles. Oh, Carlos. Checo and Charles. Between Charles and Carlos, I should have done this math beforehand. They're all pretty close, though. Yeah, Lando's pretty close, and then there's a pretty big gap to Oscar being in 6th. But I think the top 5, there's going to be some shuffles. Second, third, fourth. I think there's second, third, fourth, fifth. I think there'll be some shuffles around in the next couple of races. I'd like to point out that it's kind of amazing that Carlos
I was just going to bring this up.
Where he is at. He is in 4th place. He's only,
he's less than 10 points off of Charles, and he has one less race under his belt.
Yeah, so, if he continues performing, I think that gap is going to get smaller and smaller.
I do too.
Yes, Charles was the leading Ferrari for this particular race, but it's always Charles is always close by, or Carlos is always close, and also Carlos has been the leading Ferrari for the last couple of races. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to kind of watch that battle. It's always so interesting though, your teammate being your biggest rival, that's the person that you're trying to get ahead of. It's obviously Checo and Max, and then Carlos and Charles are right next to each other, and Lando and Oscar are right next to each other. So
yeah, actually, that is kind
crazy.
of
And then as far as points for the Constructors' Cup, McLaren is slowly catching up to the Ferrari. Not as much this week as as last week, but I mean, Lando finishing in 2nd helped a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And then McLaren is really pulling away from Mercedes. Yeah. I mean, Mercedes is sitting at 52 points, where McLaren is sitting at 96. That's a huge gap.
That makes me really happy.
Yes. So,
the fact that Max has more points himself than McLaren does in the Constructors, that's so insane.
That's insane. And it's only, the 5th race?
Yeah.
So, for that huge of a gap to already be there.
That's so crazy. He's so good. It's insane.
He's so good. Yeah. I mean, Williams, Alpine, and Sauber all still do not have points, but Haas got some points. Honestly, Haas is doing pretty good. They're kind of staying quiet.
Yeah, they're doing better than we really thought they would, considering all the changes, and it's
new
Haas.
Team principal, and it's Haas. But I'm actually pleasantly surprised. I think that Haas, if they continue on how they are, and they maybe get, no offense, get K-Mag out of there and get them, maybe if they got Ollie, I think that Haas would be doing really good, because
but it's still Ollie and a Haas, though.
It's still Ollie and a Haas, but Nico is proving that yes,
that's true.
It's a Haas, but they can still get points.
Yeah,
and while K-Mag is, if they had 2 Haas's getting points, that would be a huge improvement. They'd be up, closer. Really, there's a huge gap, though, because looking at, I was like, they'll be closer to RB but the next one is Aston Martin, and they're kind of blowing them out, too.
That's insane, the fact that RB has 7 and then Aston has 40 in their 5th and 6th.
Yeah.
That's such a big gap.
But, I mean, all in all, it was a very good race. I was happy with it.
I'm glad to not have to be getting up at 3 a.m. for a while.
Yeah, thank goodness. These couple of races we knew would be the hardest, because they're literally on the opposite side of the world from us.
Yeah.
So we already knew that it was going to be a bit of an issue, but the European races aren't as bad. They normally, as long as they aren't a night race, those are normally
I think I checked
8 a.m.
A lot of the next ones are 9 a.m. and then Canada for us is at 3.
So that'll be a good one.
That will be fun. So we'll be in luck these next races.
Yeah, we won't be as sleep deprived.
Yeah.
We'll be able to get better race recaps. But speaking of race recaps, we're going to probably give you the best race recap of our life, because the very next race, the very next Grand Prix, will be Miami, which we will be in attendance for. It feels so surreal.
I'm tearing up right now. This morning I thought about it.
She called me.
I literally called Celine, and I had tears streaming down my face. I'm so excited. I cannot wait.
It's just so we've been talking about it for so long. And for it to be 2 weeks away, basically.
That's so crazy.
2 weeks from today, we will be at the race.
Yeah.
And
oh my god, it would have probably like just ended. Race at 4. Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
It's just so exciting. Crazy. Like, and also like now like teams and like, you know, F1 articles coming out are all going to be talking about Miami, so it's like all going to be here and Miami like speculating.
Specific merch is being released, like Red Bull released some Miami merch. Honestly, that was cute.
It was cute.
Yeah,
I did like it.
Was cute.
It's just really exciting, and we're still gonna have that episode next week, and we'll probably talk quite a bit more about Miami. And
we might do a Miami's focused episode. Probably with some news. I'm sure there'll be news.
Yeah, and it'll be Logan's home race. Which I'm excited for. I think that it'll be better for him this year than last year.
Yeah.
He definitely has a bigger fan base now than he really did before.
McLaren are bringing their first set of big upgrades to Miami. So we are praying to every being out there that it goes well.
Yes. I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't want to jinx anything.
I know, but like we can't.
We can't get too far into it. But I'm excited about the possible opportunities that come with the new upgrades.
Good. That was so professional of you.
Thank you.
There's like a tear in my eye talking about that.
So we'll have a good race. We're going to have a lot of content out. We're going to probably be cranking out those TikToks.
I'm so excited.
I forgot to say it at the beginning, but make sure you are following us on all the social medias.
Yeah, please do.
We are on TikTok. We are on Instagram. We're kind of on Twitter. I think we should just stop saying it at that point because we really don't use it. We're on Instagram and TikTok. So make sure to go follow us on there. We do post on Spotify and on YouTube. YouTube, we always make fun little thumbnails. I work really hard on those. So make sure you're going to check us out on YouTube as well. Give us a like, give us a comment.
Subscribe, some stars if you think we've earned it.
Yeah.
We're pretty fun. We also should address the elephant in the room. That last week's episode was horrible quality.
Quality was bad. Sorry.
I think I said it in the episode a bit, but I moved and first time using that Wi-Fi, and apparently it's not up to the standard of recording a podcast, so.
Yeah, so we are hoping this episode comes out a little bit better. We're in my apartment this time.
Yeah.
With a more, I don't want to sound cocky, but with better Wi-Fi, basically.
200 more gigs than I do.
But yeah, definitely tune in for all of those episodes. Do you have anything else to discuss for the race?
No, should we do a bit of Indycar?
Oh, well, no, we got to do our podium pop.
Our champagne pop.
Our champagne problem. I can't believe we almost forgot that.
That's insane.
Do you want to go first for your champagne pop?
Yeah. And are we surprised that I'm going to say my champagne pop goes to Lando Norris?
I was also thinking Lando Norris.
He did so good this race. Like, McLaren as a whole did good. Lando's driving was great. The whole weekend he did good. The sprint qualifying. A little blimp in a sprint race is not going to take away the fact that he has my champagne pop.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing to note about, I also was planning on giving him my champagne pop. I always feel like biased because I'm a McLaren fan, so I feel like it's an easy cop-out, but I do think he earned it.
No, he did.
I think
for sure.
McLaren as a whole came in a lot stronger than any of us was expecting, that they were expecting.
We were all so worried.
I even told like my friends Matt and Dee, give them a little shout out. My friends Matt and Dee that it was going to be a really bad weekend for us, and I even kind of like pre-warned them like it's not going to be great. And then I, texted them, I was like, "Oh, Lando got a podium."
Not Texas, you said Lando on the podium.
So it was, I think, all in all, like I think the whole McLaren team deserves a champagne pop because they, even regardless of they didn't have any upgrades this week. They did a lot better than I was anticipating.
I thought they would honestly be hovering around. Well, I guess, what did Oscar at 8th?
Yeah.
I thought both of them would be hovering a little lower around the 10-11 range. That's what I was
I mean, I was kind of expecting like 7-8 range. And while Oscar did end up at 8th, he did have damage.
Yeah.
So I think it's not even really fair to count. I mean, I don't think he would have been super far up there, but I think he could have maybe gotten up to like 6th, maybe.
Yeah.
He probably could have passed Fernando, and he could have been fighting George for 6th, possibly if he had a fully functioning car.
Yeah.
Which leads me into my champagne problem. I'm going to give it to Lance. And I don't really think I need to go too far into it.
No.
I like Lance. I think he gets a lot of hate for not good reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the hate that he's getting for this is justified.
Well, I wouldn't say that because so many people are being.
Well, I don't think they should be mean to him about it. I don't think that he should. I don't think anybody should get hate.
Yeah, no.
Let me say that. But I see why he's getting hate this time.
Okay.
I get why.
Let's maybe not say it that way.
No, at least there's a good reason.
He's receiving criticism.
Yeah.
When he should.
Yeah.
The weird, unnecessary hate and using ableist terms against him is so...
I didn't see that.
Oh my god, yeah. People pulled out the ableist terms again.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. 100% they did.
Yeah.
And it happens every time, and that's just so weird.
Yeah.
I can't get into it much because it's just... My favorite person on TikTok, my favorite Lance Stroll fan is Lizzie on TikTok, and she always makes really good, well thought out and talked out videos about it. So go to her TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't support Lance. I didn't know about that, I swear. I was talking about the criticism, and I think this issue or this, it was his fault, and I think he should have done a little bit better of a job of owning up to it, I will say. There have been in the past where, people have it's been their fault and they have actually said, that's my bad. Go and apologize, but he's very deflective about it. I think he should have, things are going to happen. Issues like that are going to happen. Mistakes are going to be made, but I think it really is telling how they handle it after the fact in the interviews.
I agree.
That kind of is what it would have changed my opinion on the situation if he was a little bit more apologetic about it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that your champagne problem as well?
Yeah, I don't think there was much else.
I would also like to give a little shout out to Nico. I think he had a good weekend, all in all.
Nico did have a good weekend, yeah.
Yeah. Another shout out. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, the Alpines. They're starting to do better.
Gosh,
They're starting to do so much better.
Where did that come from?
That was crazy.
Yeah, during the qualifying, it's which,
I think they put on their softs before everybody else in the qualifying, which so did Williams.
Softs. I thought you said sauce.
They put on their sauce.
I'm like, I like that term. I'm going to use that. They're putting the sauce on them.
They're cooking it up.
They're cooking it up.
You can definitely really see their improvements.
Yeah. Did they come with upgrades? I don't think. I don't know how.
I don't know what
happened.
they do over there at that team, but
yeah, I don't keep up too much. Once again, Esteban was the leading Alpine, and that's been pretty common recently.
Yeah, I'm nervous for Pierre. I wasn't for the longest time, but I was I randomly started becoming a Pierre defender, which not really.
I like Pierre a lot.
Yeah.
I think even probably in our 2024 predictions, I probably would have said that Pierre would have been the leading Alpine.
I think we did say that, both of us.
And now I'm that is definitely not the case.
Mm-hmm.
I think Esteban is doing really good I think they're both doing okay with the car that they have, but I think Esteban is really showing that he can still succeed despite having a shitty car. They still have 0 points, but they're getting closer.
Yeah.
So that was kind of out of nowhere. Yeah, so definitely a little shout out to them.
Mention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then now we can get into IndyCar.
Mm-hmm.
IndyCar?
It was IndyCar. I guess still on track with the David Malukas updates. Mm-hmm. He is still out. Which actually I saw somebody tweet today that they I forget when it was, talked to David at some point and a month or so ago, and David had told this person, I think the reporter obviously, that he was getting his pins out literally the next couple days, and so he obviously hasn't gotten his pins out, and the recovery's taking a lot longer. So Teo Porcher did step up from F2, all the rumors were circulating. He was the F2 champion last year. He drove for the number 6 McLaren, and he did great. Mm-hmm. He advanced 11 points, and he was right behind Rossi.
Yeah.
I think they finished 7th and 8th.
Yeah, when we follow IndyCar, we definitely root for Arrow McLaren.
Mm-hmm.
Again, who's surprised?
Whoa.
I like Andretti a lot as well.
Yeah.
But it was looking rough for us in qualifying.
Yeah.
It was 12th, 13th, 14th, and
14th.
Rossi was 13th, Pato was 14th, and
he was 21.
Yeah, and so I think there was a big hiccup where Pato did bump into Rossi, and again, he owned up to it afterwards. Yeah. He even said, like, I think he made like a cute like comment, like, "I owe you the beer. Sorry."
He said, "I owe you all the beers."
All the beers. Like, he's like, I made a mistake. It ruined my race, and it affected Alex's as well. Yeah. So he owned up to it, and that's how you handle something like that. Like, it was completely his fault, but I'm not as mad about him. I'm mad about it for him because he was like, "Yeah, that was."
I think I fucked up. I knew
that was my bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, they had that issue pretty early in the race. It was like one of the first couple laps,
the very beginning.
But they ended up really good, or okay in the end.
Scott Dixon won.
Yes, Colton Herta came in second. It was getting really close.
It was really.
I'm an Andretti fan. I also just love Colton.
I like Colton a lot too. The other drivers is fun.
Yeah, so I was really hoping that he would kind of pull out the win in the end. It would have been, if he would have, it would have been a really cool moment because it would have been in the last couple of laps. But he did. I'm happy with him being in second, and I think he was pretty happy. I mean, probably not completely happy. He's probably pretty frustrated, but I think as a team they did great.
Yeah,
so
they did good.
It was a good race, though. We're still, not as familiar with IndyCar as we are with Formula One, so they'll like be things. It's so much harder for me to track the cars in IndyCar because they're all different. It's so much harder, like versus Formula One, like Carlos's Ferrari and Charles's Ferrari look completely the same. So like when I see them on the track, I instantly know who it is. Mm-hmm. Versus like an IndyCar, I focus a lot more on like the standings on the side. Yeah. And it's like harder for me to follow who's who.
Like Scott Dixon's car is orange and blue, just like the number 6 McLaren, which Teo drove, but David's car. Mm-hmm. And when the race first started, I also didn't have my contacts or glasses on. I was like, how's Teo up so much?
Like, oh, I was
like, oh, that's Scott.
Yeah. Yeah, and then another thing is that they don't have the teams listed on the side in the standings either. They only do it by name.
Oh, yeah.
Number and name.
And their number and name are like different fonts. They're not as cohesive.
Yeah.
We could use a bit more cohesiveness, but we're slowly getting it.
Yeah, and I think as we become more familiar with like the teams and more familiar with the drivers, it'll be a lot easier to follow. I'm sure people look at the standings for Formula One and they're like, "What is going on? Who is that? Yeah. And who is that?" Or like us, it's just second nature. There's also more drivers in IndyCar to learn versus Formula One.
Yeah.
So it's different. But all in all, it was the second race that we watched. It's like third race that we watched.
But
yeah,
that wasn't necessary.
Yeah. So it was the third race that we watched, but we're excited. Next week they're in Alabama, which we should watch that. I wonder when it is. It'd be probably like 3
around
p.m.
the same time.
It's so much easier to like watch IndyCar races because they're at normal times.
You know what we need to do? We should watch that and make our friendship bracelets.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, kind of putting this out here. We are going to be making some friendship bracelets for Miami. Yeah. If you are going to Miami, we would love to meet up, maybe exchange some friendship bracelets. So definitely DM us on TikTok or Instagram. We're super excited, and we are super excited to just hang out with other Formula One fans.
And real quick back to IndyCar. We were talking about this earlier. It's looking like Teo's going to drive next weekend for the number 6, which will mean after this, they take a break, and then the whole month of May is basically focused on the 500, and they do a road course in Indy, and then they're just like prepping for the 500. So it's really looking like David is first going to step in this car for the Indy races, which is scary.
It's scary. It's a lot of pressure. And that's a long time to be out of the car.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know what's going to happen.
And I wonder, like, how much, like, training and stuff he can even do. Mm-hmm. I know there's stuff outside of with your hand and your arm, but, yeah, I'm nervous. I hope he can get better soon. I hope we get an update on it soon, but I don't really know.
Yeah. I don't know either.
We'll send him the good vibes.
Good vibes.
They also did the, IndyCar TikTok did the "What's Up, Brother" to them.
Yeah,
and it was him and Colton, David and Colton that knew it. Everyone else was like, "What are you doing?"
Which that just checks out. They're both Gen Z. They're chronically online. Yes. Also, they did it for Oscar, and Oscar knew
what it was.
I was kind of shocked by it because although he's Gen Z, he is online some. He just doesn't interact on social media. I'm sure he's actually on it quite a bit and just not interacting. But I was a little shocked that Oscar knew what it was.
He started doing that. Yeah. It's oh, Oscar, what are you doing?
If you would have told me that out of all of the Formula One drivers who knew that, Oscar would be pretty far down on the list. Would be.
Oh, and then did you see the Alpine admin made them do it?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised that they had Jack do it too. Jack do it.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised he knew it, but Pierre and Esteban doing it was so awkward.
They are you told us how to do this 2 minutes before we started recording.
And then also it's not funny when all three of them know it.
Yeah, it's funny that some of them are what are you talking about?
This? Yeah.
So I don't really get it, honestly. I know what it is, but I don't get it.
I think it's funny. I'll be honest.
Gracie was doing it to some men at the bars yesterday.
We're all doing it. So I said, "What's up, brother?"
I was like, "Gracie, no."
It was funny.
It was funny.
You called me a free burner.
Yeah.
That's context for another day.
Yeah. But great weekend of racing.
Mm-hmm.
WEC also had a race. I'm going to be honest, I don't even know who won.
We said we were going to watch the WEC race.
Listen.
We tried. We had good intentions.
We had good intentions, but I didn't get out of bed until probably noon.
Oh, no.
And
I stayed in bed literally all afternoon.
Yeah, and that was already we fell asleep we fell asleep a little earlier than we were expecting, but the race ended at 5 a.m. practically. Yeah. And that was after almost 11 hours of drinking.
We did not drink for 11.
We drank off and on for 11 hours. Off and on. We went to a baseball game.
Oh, God.
But, so yeah, we were going to wake up and watch that. It just wasn't in the cards, so.
We'll get one in. I really like it. And I'm excited for Le Mans. We're going to hear more about it in the Le Mans European Championships.
Mm-hmm.
A lot with that.
Speaking of WEC and IndyCar, there are, I don't know if we've already talked about this, but there have been rumors that Mick will be driving for Prema in IndyCar next year.
Love that.
I would love for Mick to join IndyCar.
Oh yeah. Speaking of IndyCar, we've decided we're going to Long Beach next year.
Yes, it looked amazing.
It looked so fun. I had so much FOMO. All of our mutuals were having so much fun. Oh my God.
It was a little depressing.
It was a little sad,
but you know what? We had so much fun at our baseball game, so it's fine. It's fine. So much fun. I did have fun, but actually, probably would have had more fun at Long Beach. I
got 2 hot dogs for $14 there.
Yeah, no, it was expensive.
Oh, we're complaining about this, but we're about to be trying to eat at Miami.
We're in Miami.
That's a good point.
So, but yeah, we will. Anything else?
I don't think
the last couple of topics were so sporadically placed together.
Sorry.
We were just top of the dome.
Top of the dome.
So, yeah, that's our episode for the week. Make sure you go and follow us on social media again. Sorry I forgot to say that at the beginning.
Thanks so much for listening.
Yeah, thank you for listening.
Don't forget about those stars and likes and subscribe.
The thumbs up
really helps us out.
Yes.
We'd love to see that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.